and welcome everyone to another episode of Align, where we help you align with your true self, others, and your desired outcome to live your best life. Today, we have a very important topic, which is bromance. And if you think about, I would say, let's talk specifically about American culture. Sometimes we don't always have like the best support system where guys feel very open to, discussing that they're going on, whether it be good or bad, right? And I feel oftentimes girl groups have more of a support culture where they can talk about issues, talk about things. And so, Kian, when we met and I learned more about your group, I was obviously pleasantly surprised, and I felt there's so much that the guy community can learn from, especially through these times. So happy to have both you and Sean on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
You guys excited? You got your drinks. It's happy hour, right?
Cheers.
And cheers to LA being opened up. I'm very jealous.
Oh, you have no idea. Thank God.
So why don't we start? You guys have been friends for 14 years. It's a group of 10 guys. How the heck did you guys all come together?
So I met my best friend Michael in 6th grade, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And Sean is actually Michael's brother. So naturally, me and Sean became best friends, and at this point, they're all family. So from 6th grade till the end of middle school, we kind of built that group. And through high school, through college, no matter what, we always stuck around each other and just got closer and closer and closer. So at this point, they're not even considered best friends, they're just family. So.
Got it. Were you going to say something, Sean?
Yeah. No, I was going to say, Michael, who was obviously my brother, he's a year older than me. So at the time that I met Keon and a few of our core guys, I was in 5th grade. And so at that particular time, having somebody that that's a year older than you, it's kind of like a big, age difference at the time. So it was kind of in a way like I looked up to him and my brother and our other very close friend, Bardia, who, we all got to, know each other. I was always able to come to them for advice. They were just sort of like role models that, I had the opportunity to get to know very well growing up. And so, obviously, from then until now, it's just grown tremendously. So.
And I would say 5th grade and middle school, 6th grade on they're not the easiest years. So I'm sure you guys, you kind of joke around each other, you could bully each other, you've gone through things. So what about the chemistry in the group made you guys stick together? Because I feel like at that age, there's so many things that could go wrong.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, there's always a bunch of stuff that went wrong, but it always brought everyone closer. I mean, no matter what conflict we had, we always had each other's back. We were always there for each other. Anytime I needed advice, Sean or anyone would be there in a heartbeat. And we kind of created a friendship and relationship where we don't need to hide anything from each other. We're pretty open books to each other. We know each other's lives. There's no reason for us to hide that from each other. Or else you're not going to get that genuine friendship, family love if you do.
Right. I think another thing too, that, everyone in our group is sort of their own unique character. So they all have something very different to offer to the group. So because of that, we always would feel comfortable going to somebody else in the group for advice, just simply because they would have maybe a different spin on it. Although we see, so much of everything somewhat the same way. So I think because of that, we're able to sort of learn from each other and sort of build on that.
Got it. And I want to be clear, the group of 9 to 10 of you guys, are you around the same age?
Yeah, pretty much all the same age.
Maybe a couple people are a year older, but
it's nothing at this
relatively
point.
The same thing.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Got it. Super helpful. So it sounds like even from the very beginning, the importance of being genuine and when there was an issue, you guys proactively sought advice.
Yeah. No one hid behind anything. It was very blunt of this is the issue. How do we fix it? If this person has a problem with this person, let's resolve this. Because we never want rifts in our group. Yeah. And we would always make sure that never happens.
Got it. I love that. Very mature for fifth grade, I gotta say. That's awesome. So let's talk about it. When there is a conflict in the group, say between you two, right? How does it get handled? Do other people get involved? Walk me through a scenario. And I guess I'm sure whatever you guys do now is kind of trials of learning what actually works. So what is kind of the golden rule that works in the group now?
I think really the golden rule is just say directly to them, like don't shy away from if there is an issue, just sort of, see it head on, because at this point we've known each other so long that if I'm going to him and, for whatever reason, he's not going to take it personally. He's going to see it as me just trying to, point something out or just say, hey, maybe I was in the wrong in this case, or maybe you were. So it's just really you guys being comfortable enough with each other just to be honest. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if like me and Sean ever have a problem, let's say if I screw up and I make a mistake in my life, I would hope that
really,
Sean
seriously
gets on my case and
really
calls me out and chews me out.
I hope so.
And gives me the most honest answers and truths, because that's the relationship that you want. And the thing I love about Sean is one of the most honest, blunt people there is. And maybe sometimes I might hate what he has to tell me. It might hurt me. But in the end of the day, I know Sean always has my best interest at heart. He always wants the best for me. So the problem with people is they get hurt from the honest truth.
Yeah.
And you need to be comfortable enough with your friends and your family and yourself that when someone does come to you and puts you in place and saying, hey, you shouldn't have done this, or you should have done this instead, then you should take that person's advice, because they're an outsider. You always have a different viewpoint when you're an outsider of a situation.
Yeah.
And most of the times, those viewpoints are better than what you are experiencing, as you have emotional feelings of an issue. So it's better where you have a third party looking at you and telling you the truth.
I think sort of the draw on that too. I don't think really, it's not really a problem, or it shouldn't be really, frowned upon to go and be honest with somebody. I think the real problem with me, I would be upset at myself if I didn't say something. That's something that I'd be disappointed in myself about. So either way, if, you could take it however you want at that time, but, it's better than the alternative, which is not to say anything at all.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously for you guys, 14 years in, it's a lot easier to have these conversations, and there's an understanding you were doing it for each other's best interest, right? But if you had to go back memory lane when you guys were first friends and trying to figure things out, like, were there any communication tactics, timing, people involved that made it like easier because you haven't figured out the rules yet at that point? You're just like, hey, like something happens. How do we resolve it? Were there any, like, do you have any advice on like communication between guys and bros, like how you should come out about it? Should you talk a little bit more about like, hey, this is how I felt about something, like I felt like you did XYZ, or do you feel like being very direct about like, hey, you did this was inappropriate to me because XYZ, like any kind of advice there?
I think maybe just aside from honesty, I think really what it comes down to is it's difficult to say, because every single guy group has their own sort of dynamic as to how they treat each other, and how they go about dealing with situations themselves. I think with us, especially because they were already very close with my brother at the time that they met me, they had a different sense of comfort with coming to me and coming to me for advice. So I think the main thing is just, if you're around people who see things some sort of the same way you do, and they look to push you, then sort of you guys just talking everything out, it shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to know your audience.
That too.
So if you just became friends with a guy, for example, you have to understand that person. You have to understand their sensitivities, what they're really good at, what they're really bad at, what they can't really understand, what they do really understand well. And that's how you should approach it if you want to give advice and stuff. you can't just flat out meet someone and then call them out for everything they do. Yeah. I mean, the guy's gonna be like, why the hell am I friends with this person? I'm just getting battered left and right pretty much.
Yeah.
So know the people you're around, and make sure when you do want to say something, make sure you're at a comfortable level with that person.
Yeah.
And frankly, if you do see a bunch of problems with each other, then don't force such a crazy good friendship. Not everyone is meant to be friends. Not everyone is supposed to be as close as me and him, for example.
Yeah.
It's just the way the world works.
And ironically too, there's people who you may be very close with when you're younger, and then you guys grow apart as you get older. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, just because you have a certain relationship with each other now, that it doesn't, you know, stay that way as you get older. It may get better or worse. We're just saying.
Life's a roller coaster. So you got to just take it as it is, and then figure out the best way to make life the best it can be.
Yeah.
And when you create those like confidant friendships and everything, that's when you make life the best as it is. I mean, I could guarantee you and tell you, I would not have enjoyed my life, or I would not have been where I am now without like Sean, his brother, and my 100%, friends.
Yeah.
You know, those are like the most important things in life.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with both of you guys and echo your points of how sometimes I feel people don't understand relationships are fluid. And oftentimes in life we have chapters, and certain chapters are longer than the other. Some chapters, you know, are completely new, or some of them are just kind of a continuation of the one prior, and not to get so caught up on what used to be, right? Because to your point, like people change, like life events happen, like people, I mean, it could be the person that you had a relationship with was like not the true version of themselves, and now that they found the true version, you're no longer aligned, right? So being very open and flexible and grateful for like whatever you guys have shared in the past, but stop trying to force and hold on to the past if it no longer is a fit. But at the same time, for the people who've been in your life for 14 years, that becomes a whole nother level of care and priority over everybody else.
Yeah.
So super helpful. If you had to think, I feel like you guys probably hit on this, but if you had to think back on the biggest fight that you guys had, both of you, together, like with each other, we don't talk about the details, but like how you resolved it. Were there certain points when you're like, that really came out wrong? And even though, say for example, like Sean messed up, with the way that Keon communicated, like really just rubbed Sean the wrong way and triggered him, like walk us through how you guys kind of solved an issue like that.
Sorry, by all means, go for it.
It's tough. I mean, because I feel like, you know, in recent years, we don't really fight that much. I mean, we mess around, we'll say stuff back to each, you know, back and forth to each other, but it's not necessarily like because I want to start a fight with him, or, you know, so it's kind of difficult to say for us.
I mean, it's at this point in our lives, it's just banter back and forth.
It's messing with each other.
But even growing up, we never got into any serious fights because we would never allow it to get to that point.
Good.
Yeah. If there was a major problem, and if, for example, if me and Sean had a major problem, I guarantee you his brother Michael will not let it get past a certain level of no return.
Yeah, like everyone else sort of like checks each other within the group if they see something developing, so they, you know, prevent it from getting that far.
Exactly. If me and Sean are out and we have a problem and there's 5 of our friends with us in our group, our 5 of our friends will be like, what's wrong with you two? Figure this out. Like, why are you guys causing this? We want to all be together and have enjoyed life. Yeah. So get it together, figure it out. I mean, you're smart people. Handle it, resolve it one way, you know? Yeah. So
initially I thought, you know, sometimes having a group that's too big can get out of hand, right? Because again, big personalities, different personalities, you know, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. It's another variable, right? But when you put it that way, I totally agree. And it resonates when in our girl group, when we see something like festering, people who are not emotionally attached can get involved and be like, hey guys, like this looks really stupid and silly. These are seems like the issues, hash it out, right? Or we'll hash it out in a group, right? So I agree. I think it's actually a good thing to have a larger group beyond, call it like 2-3 people, because then it's always like you'll have like the judge right? The people who are not involved as a judge, kind of making the shots, be like, hey, like maybe you're a little harsh there. Maybe you shouldn't have said this. Got it. Okay. Let's talk about when things go well, right? So it's human nature to compare, especially in a world of social media, right? Will be times, because life's a roller coaster, as you said, Kian, where say Kian, something really good happened to you, but then Sean's just going through hell right now, right? And vice versa. How do you remove your own, like, what you're going through and be genuinely happy or genuinely there for each other?
I think it's just actually genuinely being happy for that person. I mean, I don't think there's really any other way to, sort of put it. I mean, you don't have to necessarily try. Like, I genuinely just want what's best for him and what's best for everyone around me. So I don't necessarily need to try to feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
and for me, like Michael and Sean, they're killing it in their field. They're doing amazing. And when I used to live with them, and every morning, like I would see them two wake up, and we'd all wake up and for 30 minutes, sit and talk about work and how our day's gonna go. And when they close deals and they're doing great, it's not envy, it's inspiration. You get inspired to do better yourself, because we live like that Happy Gilmore life. When one of us do good, we want to make sure all of us do good.
Yeah.
When one succeeds, we want to make sure that everyone else will find a way for them to succeed as well. Yeah. And when you're a group of 10 people, you have a lot of resources to use.
I think also too, like just in general, or all of our friends, I would say, are just very competent, very intelligent, very hardworking. They're all doing very well for themselves. So I already have faith in them that if they're just happen to be going through some like slump right now, that they're just going to get out of it anyways.
Yeah. I mean, for example, I remember when I lived with Michael and Sean, I was working on a hotel and I was doing the design, and Michael and Sean are not engineers, but I was going on 48-hour no sleep, just work cycle. And I had a deadline at 6 a.m. Michael and Sean saw that after 2 days I haven't slept and I'm killing myself to finish this job. And they literally sat down at like 2 a.m. to like 5 a.m. Not engineers. They told me simply explain the theory of what you're doing and I'll help you finish the job. So they always go out of the way to make sure that, again, we succeed and we accomplish our goals. And that's a super important factor, because that takes out envy, that takes out jealousy or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, I finished my deadline. What's going to happen? I want to go celebrate. I want to go party.
Yeah.
Obviously, he wants to enjoy it too. So our successes make us enjoy our time with each other more. And that's why we always want to push each other to that next level so we can enjoy life as much as possible.
Yeah. I agree with you, Kian. I think when you see people, it doesn't even have to be in your close friend group, but when you see people become successful or achieve things that you're like, wow, it'd be so cool if I had that, it just shows you it's possible. That's it, right? Like I think my mindset's very similar, where I believe in abundant world. Like I don't really live in fear. I think there's always enough for everybody. You just have to find like your niche and what you're good at, what your gift is, and accelerate on it, right? You can't really compare yourself to someone else's gift. I'm with you on that. And if anything, it's good that you guys have such different backgrounds and different careers and interests, because oftentimes the best inspiration I've gotten when I'm working on like a finance project, it's someone not in my field. It's someone in med, someone in tech, someone in marketing. Then I'm like, oh my God, it's a really good point. I remember I took a social media marketing class this summer as like, just like for fun, right? Took an NYU class. And it was one of my classmates who's in marketing, in PR, who like gave me this idea. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. So if anything, I think it's a good thing that you guys have like very different complementary, and you aren't trained the same way, right? Because if they're trained the same way, chances are they would have been stuck where you were stuck, Kian, right? Because you've been training the same engineering way. So being open, and you also had no ego to be like, oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Like you're not an engineer, right? You were very open to say like, hey, kind of stuck, kind of want to go to bed. I'll take your help. I love that.
Yeah.
So family dynamics, right? Family, I mean, I feel sometimes your family could be like your number one punching bag, but also like your number one, like biggest love resource, right? How does it change the dynamics in a group when you have brothers, right? Because I feel like when brothers fight or when sisters fight, it is like a whole new level. So how has that changed things? Obviously, it seems like it enhanced things more so, but talk about when you throw family into a group of friends.
Oh yeah.
You have the brother, so.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's very different. So obviously growing up, like in the beginning, I think sort of I've touched on this a little bit before, because he was in a grade older than me. At that time, you being a grade younger than your brother and sort of being around other people that are a year older than you, that's like a very, big time gap. So sort of like, you meshing in and sort of finding your place as to like what you have to offer to the group and everyone else is different. But, having Michael in the group, was just somebody I could just always, go to for advice. I mean, at the time, like little brother, big brother, like in middle school, like we're always fighting, it's difficult then. But I think like as time went on, like we really did become best friends. Like he really, really is my best friend now. So it's difficult at first. And then just as time goes on, it kind of,
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I have an older brother and he's 10 years older, but it becomes a tricky situation because when you have such a close group of friends, you got to just make sure that you don't shy away from your relatives too, like my brother.
Yeah, good point.
So it's, I'm with Sean and Michael and them much more than my brother, but at the same time, my brother also has his own family.
Yeah.
But you just have to be conscious and aware that you can't not try to keep that family relationship strong. So I'm blessed that I work with my brother, and we always make sure that we have a good brother work balanced life, that when we're not working together, that I also got in my way and spend time with him rather than just completely dedicating every time from work to my 10 best guy friends.
Yeah.
So you got to be aware and have a balance of work and life and friends and family relationships.
Yeah. I hear you. It's 14 years in, obviously, like it's kind of touched about it before, but you have a sense of when someone is not okay, not doing well. It's pretty obvious. But what advice would you give, guy groups who, I mean, maybe they just formed it 2-3 years ago. It's a new city for them, or it's not 14 years deep, right? What advice would you give? Because I feel like, especially through COVID times, right? It's not very always natural for guys to talk about their feelings or talk about, hey, I'm really anxious about work. I'm really anxious about my health. I'm really anxious about, my relationships, right? What advice would you give guys looking around their guy friend group to say, like, how do you check up on each other? How do you make sure it's like, you're obviously not hurting anyone's ego and making them feel like, oh, what do I look like I'm depressed or whatever? So what advice would you give about that? How to communicate and reach out to support fellow guys?
In my opinion, I think the whole macho man is all nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all human. We all feel, and however you want to hide your feelings, it's up to you. But at the end of the day, everyone feels some sort of way of something. And if someone's hurting, don't always wait for someone to come for help. Mm-hmm. If you see a friend of yours in pain or struggling with something, simply just ask them what's going on. There's nothing wrong with caring about someone, I don't know what happened where people started shying away from seeing how other people are or giving attention. And I don't know if it's the world kind of got skewed from worrying about friendships to like a social media factor of, oh my God, this person did this on social media versus actually caring for what's in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
So when you see something wrong, don't shy away from it. Just ask the person, because at the end of the day, they're not going to take it offensively if you ask them, hey, what's wrong? Like, I see something going on and I just want to help.
Yeah.
It's not going to ruin a friendship. If anything, it'll make your friendship more stronger. So just be aware of your surroundings, be aware of your friends. And if you see something, just ask them. You're not going to lose anything from doing so. And if you're a person that is having the issue, there's nothing wrong with getting help.
Yep.
I mean, any single time something goes wrong in my life, I immediately just go to Michael and Sean right away.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go there and they'll drop everything they're doing and they'll hear me out. And it's because I'm human.
Yeah.
If I'm hurt or if something's going on in my life, they're the person I'm going to vet to. And there's nothing wrong with doing that whatsoever. And no matter where you are in a friendship level of 1 year to 14 years to 1 month, know you're a human being and be comfortable where you could go reach out to people and your friends for any advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of to add on to that. So even just aside from you going out of your way to, see what's wrong with your friend, it's also cuts the other way too. If you wake up in the morning, you really have to be honest with yourself. If something's really bugging you, that it's something that you can't handle internally, then you don't have a choice but to go then to your support group and ask them for help.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll just make things worse and it'll begin to show. So I think sooner or later, if there's something that really is bugging you as much as it really is, people around you will, acknowledge it and they'll figure it out sooner or later. So it's not going to do anything for you from, trying to hide it from everybody. It'll only make it worse. So I think that's sort of like the takeaway.
Yeah, I agree. Adding to what you mentioned, Kian, about, I don't know when we kind of shied away from talking about our feelings and so forth, right? I just think back from people that I work with or people that I'm close with, it takes one bad memory of when you shared your feelings and got a negative response. And it could be like 3rd grade, right? And it just ruins you because you're like, I got rejected. I'm never doing that again. I need to be macho, right? So it takes one bad traumatic memory, right? That someone, at that age, you don't even know how to handle it, to be honest with you, right? So you just have like a young child that's clueless getting affected by another young child that's clueless, right? And the second thing is also the image of the need to feeling that you have to be perfect. Like the only way for me to be accepted or loved is to be perfect, right? I think back in my personal journey, there's up until I was, I think, high school, that I always felt like I had to be I would literally not leave my house until I thought was, quote, perfect. And I had a perfect grades, perfect everything, like think like crazy Asian to like the 10th degree, right? And I think it's just like the mindset, like, oh, Jess, if you don't do this, you won't get accepted. You won't be loved. Your family's gonna think you're crazy. You won't have friends, right? So I think it's breaking that stereotype to say, guys, the only way for you to be accepted is to have connection. And the only way for you to have a connection with someone is to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it. That's literally the formula for having connection with humans, right? And being accepted is just being authentic and vulnerable. And so it's so against everything that we've been taught, right? It's so against everything that we're so used to, especially I feel like girls are allowed to, have feelings growing up and like cry. Boys are told can't cry, handle it like a man. So you wonder why we have a society where men can't really talk about their feelings, especially the negative ones, right? Because they're just supposed to, quote, handle it. So yeah, I agree with you guys. Like, it's just so important to like check yourself, do a really honest check with yourself, right? And then if and when you're like, this is not working, or even when you're like, you're not sure, it doesn't hurt to get another perspective, right? I always tell people who come to me for like, oh, I don't know how to handle certain things. I'm like, listen, you can't think your way to clarity. Like, you have to act your way through clarity, right? Like, me talking to myself in my mind is going to get me nowhere. I want to go like this, right? For me to go from point A to point B, to get from like question to answer to solution, I got to act, right? I need to try things, talk to people, get more answers, right? Talking in a loop with yourself is so unproductive. And you end up driving yourself crazy because you're just like, wait, I literally spent 3 hours talking to myself, going nowhere fast. So I'm with you guys. So it seems like you guys are obviously like very not just supportive, but you're true like a family unit. Have talk to me about a surprise that you've actually like a really kind surprise that you've done for each other when you either it could be for a celebration, it could be someone was down, but like name one time that each of you guys have done something special or went out of your way.
Ooh,
Something special.
that's
He's like, I am special as is our friendship.
tough one.
That's a tough one too. I mean, surprises. I don't feel like we really like,
Or something kind you've done. Well, I mean, what you shared, Keon, like what Sean and his brother did was super kind. But how about you, Sean? Something that Keon has done that you're like, whoa, that like, I will never forget that.
Wow, where do I start?
Yesterday at a.
That's a really tough one.
Really?
That's a tough one.
I feel like, when I was younger, like it's just going to him for advice. I mean, I can't really like pinpoint like
A moment,
one particular time, but like there's so many times I was like down about something, like I really needed advice. I was really like, coming into my own, trying to grow up and figure out, who I was. And like, I just always knew I could go to him and just ask for advice. And like, that was just something that like did, everything for me growing up. One of the most important things in my life growing up was like, I could just go to him for advice, but I can't say like one time where like he surprised me, because I feel like it's just so many of those like little memories. Like we've traveled the world together, like, we hang out together all the time. So it's not necessarily like, like a surprise.
Yeah. It's the little things.
Yeah. It's all little things.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Oh, the bromance. I love this. Well, I mean, with that, last question is what advice would you give guys where, they're finding their tribe, they're building out their tribe, it's still newer, right? Like what advice would you tell them in terms of like, how do you pick the right guys to trust, right? That's huge, right? And then also, how do you, continue building that relationship with someone where you can kind of build kind of the bromance that you guys have?
One thing is like, you're really like the moving average of like, the 5 or 10 people that you hang out with the most. Like you all sort of somewhat share some qualities with each other. So I think that's number one, that you really need to be around people who, to an extent, see things the way that you do. And honestly, another thing too, I think that people don't look at this enough. Like really look at somebody's family. Like how are their parents? How is their brother? Like, I think it was very easy for me and my brother to become really close with Keon and some of the other guys in the group, because when I met their family, the way that I saw that they treated him and the way that they treated each other and the way that they treated me, and I'm just some kid walking into their house, I'm like, wow, these are great people, because the apple really doesn't fall too far from the tree. Yeah. So I think whenever you're assessing like how you think somebody actually is, like don't overlook like how is their sibling, how are their, parents, and how are their closest, relatives to them, and how do they treat each other and, them.
Yeah.
And for me, it's every relationship that you have in your life, it should kind of be a knife sharpens a knife situation.
Definitely.
I want my best friends, and anyone who has a best friend should push each other. They should make each other succeed. They should make each other a better person.
Yeah.
And those are things that you really have to look for. And that's the biggest flag. It's, I met this person and within 1 month, I see that I'm becoming a better person. I'm trying harder in life to become more successful or do really good, or this person's helping me achieve my goals and dreams. Yeah. Then that adds a value in your life. So you want to surround yourself with people who add value to your life. That if they're not in your life, there's something missing. There's a void that should be filled, and it sucks that they're out. Mm-hmm. You want someone who's going to push it, someone who's going to, you wake up to and you're comfortable enough where, hey, if I'm having a problem, I'm going to go to them. If I have ideas or anything, they're there to help you. And people need to look for that. They need to look for people that are willing to help, people that are willing to make them laugh, feel alive.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of adding and adding to what you guys said and also linking it, I think self-awareness and looking for people, if you want to look for your guy group, find men that are self-aware
Yeah,
and like knowing it's not about you obviously, but also knowing your surroundings and how can you use your energy to make your surroundings better. Like for example, Sean's point about family, I'm 100% with you,
yeah,
but unfortunately you can't choose your family, right? You just can't. And there are every family has that black sheep or that weird 3 standard deviation event. I'm like, how the heck did that's your aunt or that's your, but then you can't change that, right? But how does this person interact with this member that still respects the family member but creates a safe
Yeah.
space,
exactly.
right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like there'll be times, like I hope this never happens, but there'll be times when you marry into a family, there's gonna be certain family members you're like, oh my God, like I have to deal with this person. How does your partner shield you and protect you from those not so good vibes, right? But still respectful and like create space for the family, but then create space for the partner, right? So I'm totally with you. It's like you gotta find men that are self-aware of not just themselves, but like I know the faults of my family. I know what the pros are, and I can kind of work around it. And then adding to what Kian mentioned about like making you better, it's also looking for people who are willing to be pushed, right?
Yeah.
If you're moving at this pace and this guy's going like taking a sweet ass time, you may be thinking, I'm doing you a favor, I'm pushing you. And he's like, she's so aggressive. Like, I can't, she's asking the world of me. And there's many times where I'm like, you know what, like personally for me, you're a really sweet girl, but like I'm Sean, I'm like you, I'm so blunt, I'm so no filter that like it is very jarring for someone who can't handle the truth. Hard stop, right? So you got to pick the people who are just at the same, not just wavelength, but the same speed at which you're going through that wavelength. So I'm with you guys on that. But no, honestly, just want to say thank you guys so much. This is such an important topic. And I think many guys can really benefit from hearing your story, how you guys kind of got together and creating what I call it's a true bromance. But I always wrap up with asking everyone, I believe everyone has a unique gift that they can share with the world to make it a better place. So Sean and Kian, what would you say your unique gifts are?
Unique gift.
Go for it.
You look confused. You're like, I don't have any.
No, it's like a willingness to help other people. Like I really, really like, I get a joy out of, helping out a friend or anybody else who just comes to me for advice or a favor or anything else. And I don't never expect anything back from it. And I think like, because of that, like I'm able to really, give my 100%. I'm able to share what I know, what I'm capable of doing with other people. I think if anything, that's one of my greatest gifts.
Love that.
And for me, it's honesty and like being compassionate.
Mm.
When I care, I really care, and I'll do everything for that person in the world, no matter what it requires of me. But at the same time, I'll always be honest with the person. And my goal is just whoever's around me, I want them to do the best in life possible. And however I could help, I'll always go on my way. Keep my promises, never let anyone down, because my greatest fear in life is making a promise and not keeping it. So I will always make sure one way or another, no matter what self-sacrifice I have to make, I'll make sure that person, the promise is upheld. So
integrity. I love it. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you guys in LA in person next.
yes, do. Talk to you later.
Thank you.